Okay, so my name is Emily, and today our discussion is we're asked the question: Is inequality unavoidable? And so basically, we talked about three different readings, and the first reading that I'm just gonna talk briefly about is Weber, and basically what Weber talks about is a type of so he says how people naturally strive for different types of power, like economic power, as well as striving for honor. So like basically he's just saying that like this is natural for humans to strive for power, and that along with this comes class and status groups and parties, which are obviously with power comes all these different classes and stuff. So this means that obviously people are going to be divided up, and you're going to have inequality. So I feel like Weber's basically saying that inequality is not avoidable. But then going on to talk about Du Bois, which I talked a lot about on my notes. He says that Du Bois says that inequality can be avoidable, and that basically it can be avoidable with time and works. But he's talking about racial inequality, so that's completely different from what Weber discusses. And so in his book, what was this book called?
Weber's?
Yeah.
It was.
Or no, Du Bois.
Oh, it was
something about
the souls of black folks.
Yeah, the souls of black folk, or whatever. Yeah. So so in his book he inhabits a world in which a color line divides all life into two parts. So the first part is privileged and white, and it exploits the other part that is contained and black. So he also talks about his conscience being divided and into two parts, and so basically he says that he has a double conscience, and he calls he says that his experience is generated by the color line, which he calls the veil. And he says that a man living behind the veil, part of his being is hidden. So, like, part of his conscience belongs to the human race, and the other part of his conscience is shrouded behind the veil of, like, which the veil is the color line because he's black. And so, like, during Du Bois' story, he allows the reader to look behind what he calls the veil and to share his pain and humiliation. Yeah. I don't know why that was hard for me to say. And to celebrate a world populated by heroes and joy. So he says that the souls of black folk are the flame of hope and life in a world where hatred diminishes and kills the body and the spirit. So anyway, Du Bois says that the struggle for freedom from economic and from political slavery is like the quest for the golden fleece, a journey of epic proportions. He says segregation is even enforced. In his book he talks about how not only out like in the field and everything is segregation put into play, but also in housing and in the economy and politics, as well as some social customs. So then he talks about how voting creates the possibility to to fight back, but he says that political corruption subverts this power. So like there's so many there's so much political corruption that like voting should help with the inequality in race, but that because there's so much corruption, you're not getting anywhere. So then he talks about how crime and poor public education further weaken the community and the strength needed to resist. And he says that sympathy and cooperation, not charity, are necessary to improve the situation. So, 1 minute two. So then he says that faith in God, the community, family, and one another sustains African Americans. So he basically believes that the key to end despair and the suffering behind the color line is to rise above hate. So he lost his son because of the fact that his son needed medical attention, and his son was denied that medical attention because of the color of his skin. And Du Bois still believed that equality could or was possible to overcome. And he also mentioned in his book that his friend or mentor, Alexander Cromwell, I guess that's how you say his last name, was denied entry into ministry, and because of the color of his skin as well, but yet he continues to serve others as a witness to the Spirit. So he fights against the color line and triumphs through his love and generosity until he ultimately died. So Du Bois calls for an active demand for social justice that will compromise with nothing less than full equality. So basically, Du Bois realizes that there is not social inequality, but just inequality, but he thinks that it is avoidable, but not through anger and hatred. He thinks that the only way to overcome it is through love and respect for others and generosity. So then I talked briefly about the Invisible Man, and I feel like that story is basically very similar to Du Bois' story, and he just talks about, it's a dude that goes to college, and there's a bunch of racial discrimination, and I think the dude's friend ends up getting killed, and there's like all these riots going on and everything, and basically the riots are leading to nothing but bad harm done to them. And so he basically believes that the same thing, that racial inequality can be fixed, but not through hatred and all this stuff. So I felt like that read was very similar to how Du Bois feels.
I feel like that's also, I don't know, even today, like you see like black people protesting.
Yeah.
It never ends. It never ends well, you know.
No, it's kind of like if protesting, a good side of protesting, if you're being respectful and everything, that's good. Yeah. But destroying places and stuff like this, I feel like it's only making you go backwards as far as trying to fix this inequality that exists.
Yeah, and for mine, I read Max Weber's class, class Status and Party. I had to look up the definition for stratification, and it just said it was the hierarchical, is that how you say it?
Hierarchical,
hierarchical,
Yeah.
or vertical division of society according to rank or class. And Weber had 3 components of stratification, which were class, status, and power. Class was basically just a person's like economic position in society. Status was a person's prestige, social honor, or popularity. And power was basically a person's ability to get their way, despite the resistance of others. And Weber explained that these were all separate